You found the house, great neighborhood, great lot. The location works, the price might even work. But then you walk inside and the kitchen looks like it hasn't been touched since 1987. The flooring needs to go, the bathrooms need work. And suddenly you're thinking, I like the house, but where am I supposed to get the money to fix all of this after I buy it? That's where renovation financing may come into the conversation. I'm Spencer Bauer, the mortgage vet, and today I'm breaking down how renovation loans work, what kinds of buyers and properties they may make sense for, and what you should understand before deciding that a fixer upper isn't an option. Let's get into it. So, first, what exactly is a renovation loan? Let's keep this simple. With a traditional home purchase, you're financing the home you're buying in its current condition. If you want to remodel the kitchen, replace the flooring, update the bathrooms, or make other improvements after you buy it, you're generally figuring out how to pay for those improvements separately. That could mean using savings, credit cards, a personal loan, or simply waiting until you have the money. Renovation financing can work differently. Depending on the program, property, and your qualifications, renovation financing may allow you to combine the purchase of the home and eligible renovation costs into the financing for the transaction. So instead of asking, can I afford this house, and then somehow come up with another $50,000 to renovate it, we're asking, is there a financing strategy that can account for both the purchase and the eligible improvements? That's the basic idea behind renovation financing. Now, here's something else that's important to understand. When I say renovation loan, I'm not talking about one single mortgage product. There are different renovation financing programs, including conventional and government backed options, and they don't all work the same way. The right option depends on several things: who you are as the borrower, the property you're buying, how much work the home needs, what you're trying to renovate, and what you ultimately want the financing to accomplish. That's why I don't like hearing someone say, oh, you need this renovation program after a 30-second conversation. We don't start with the loan product. We start with the problem we're trying to solve. First, I want to understand you. Then I want to understand the property. Then I want to understand the renovation. After that, we determine which financing strategy actually makes sense. So why does any of this matter? Because most buyers are naturally attracted to the same homes: updated kitchen, new flooring, modern bathrooms, fresh paint, move in ready, and there's nothing wrong with wanting that. But when everybody wants the same finished house, that property may attract more attention and more competition. Meanwhile, there may be another home in the same area with a great location, a good floor plan, and the things you actually can't easily change, but it's dated. Maybe the kitchen is ugly. Maybe the flooring needs to go. Maybe the bathrooms look 20 years old. And buyers start crossing that house off their list because they're thinking, I don't have another $40,000 or $50,000 sitting around to fix this after I close. That's where understanding renovation financing can change the conversation. Instead of only asking, what does this house look like today? We can also ask, what could this house become? Now, that doesn't mean every outdated house is suddenly a great deal. Sometimes a property should absolutely be passed on. But I don't want you eliminating a potentially good home simply because nobody showed you another way to think about the financings. So, what can you actually renovate with renovation financing? This is usually where people start getting interested. Depending on the specific program, eligible improvements can potentially range from relatively simple cosmetic updates to much larger projects. That might include things like updating a kitchen, remodeling bathrooms, replacing flooring, interior or exterior painting, replacing a roof, updating heating and cooling systems, plumbing or electrical work, new windows or doors, accessibility improvements, energy efficiency improvements, and potentially larger renovations depending on the program and property. But here's the part I really want you to understand. A renovation loan is not a blank check. You don't simply decide you want $50,000, add it to the mortgage, and then spend the money however you want. The improvements have to be eligible under the particular program. The scope of work needs to make sense. Costs need to be documented. Contractors and bids may have specific requirements. And the project has to fit within the guidelines of the financing we're using. That's why I keep coming back to the same point. Bring me into the conversation early. If you're looking at a property and already thinking, I'd redo this kitchen, replace these floors, and update that bathroom, tell me that before we build the financing strategy. The sooner I understand what you're trying to accomplish, the sooner we can determine whether renovation financing is actually worth exploring. Let's put some numbers to this because I think this is where renovation financing starts making more sense. Let's say you find a home listed for $300,000. You love the neighborhood, you like the layout, the house has the fundamentals you're looking for. But after looking at the property, you believe there may be about $50,000 of eligible improvements you'd want to make. Maybe it's the kitchen, flooring, bathrooms, and some other updates. Without renovation financing, you might immediately think, okay, I need to qualify to buy a $300,000 house and then somehow come up with another $50,000 to renovate it. And for a lot of buyers, that's where the conversation ends. They simply don't have another $50,000 sitting in a bank account after their down payment, closing costs, and everything else involved in buying the home. With an appropriate renovation financing structure, we may be able to look at the purchase and eligible renovation costs together, subject to the specific loan program, appraisal, qualification, loan limits, and other requirements. But I want to be very clear here. This does not mean $300,000 house plus $50,000 because that's what you want equals an automatic $350,000 mortgage. That's not how this works. Your income matters. Your credit matters. Your existing debts matter. Your down payment and available funds matter. The property matters. The renovation scope matters. The appraisal matters. And the specific renovation program matters. You still have to qualify for the financing. The difference is that instead of automatically assuming you need to purchase the home first and somehow fund every improvement separately afterward, we're determining whether there's a financing strategy that can account for the eligible renovation as part of the transaction. And that's why I want to run the actual scenario before a buyer decides the house doesn't work. Now you might be wondering, how does the appraisal work if the renovations haven't even been completed yet? Great question. This is another area where renovation financing can work differently from a standard purchase. Depending on the specific renovation program, the appraisal process may take the proposed improvements into consideration. Remember our example. We're buying a dated home, and we're proposing eligible improvements as part of the renovation financing strategy. So the renovation plans aren't just something you and the contractor talk about after closing. They can become an important part of the financing process. What work are we proposing? What's included in the scope? What are the documented costs? And what does the applicable program require the appraiser to consider? This is why documentation matters so much. You can't simply say, "Trust me, Spencer. Once I redo this kitchen, this house is going to be worth another $100,000. That's not how we establish value. The appraisal has to be completed according to the requirements of the renovation program we're using. And that means the proposed improvements, contractor information, bids, plans, and other required documentation may all become important pieces of the transaction. This is another reason I keep telling buyers, don't wait until after you've written the offer to start thinking about the renovation. If renovation financing is going to be part of the strategy, I want to know that as early as possible. That gives us time to understand the project, identify the documentation we'll need, and determine whether the financing strategy makes sense before everybody starts racing against a closing deadline. Now let's talk about the contractor, because this is one part of renovation financing that buyers sometimes underestimate. Your contractor isn't just somebody who shows up after closing with a hammer and starts tearing out cabinets. Depending on the renovation program we're using, we may need specific information about the contractor and the work they're proposing. That can include things like a detailed bid, a scope of work, estimated costs, project timelines, and other documentation required by the particular program. That's important because the lender needs to understand what we're actually financing. If we're including eligible renovation costs in the financing, we can't simply say the kitchen is probably going to cost about 30 grand. We need documentation supporting the project, and this is where choosing the right contractor becomes important. A great contractor isn't only somebody who does great work. For a financed renovation, you also want somebody who communicates well, provides clear documentation, and understands that there may be lender and program requirements involved. If a contractor tells you, "Don't worry about all that paperwork, we'll figure it out later," that may create problems. And here's another thing buyers don't always think about. Availability matters. You could find an incredible contractor, but if they can't provide the documentation or bid we need for 3 weeks, and your purchase contract doesn't give us that kind of time, we have a problem. So if renovation financing might be part of your strategy, don't wait until the last minute to start talking to contractors. The lender, Realtor, buyer, contractor, appraisal, and mortgage operations team all need to be working from the same plan. The earlier we build that team, the smoother the process can be. So here's the bottom line. If you're looking at a home and you love the location, the layout, or the potential, but you're worried about the work it needs, don't automatically cross it off your list. Send me the listing. Tell me what you'd want to change, and let's determine whether renovation financing is actually worth exploring for your situation. I'm Spencer Bauer, the mortgage vet, senior loan officer with Fairway Home Mortgage. If this video helped you understand renovation financing, subscribe to the channel. I break down mortgage strategies, home buying, VA loans, new construction, renovation financing, and the things buyers and realtors should understand before making major financial decisions. And if you have a specific property or mortgage scenario you want me to look at, reach out. I'll see you in the next one. God bless. Be kind to one another and have a great day.